Hello everyone, welcome back to the final episode of our trigger series in SQL Server. If you have been following along, you already know how powerful and versatile triggers can be in managing data automatically. In the first two videos, we covered DML and DDL triggers in depth. And today, we are wrapping up things with a special type of trigger, that is Logon Trigger. These triggers don't respond to insert or updates. They fire as soon as someone tries to connect to your SQL Server instance. Sounds powerful? That's because it is from monitoring suspicious login attempts to restricting access during high risk hours. Login triggers bring a whole new level of control and security. In this video, I will walk you through where and why logon triggers are used, a real-time scenario where they can save your day, and of course, we will get hands-on with a step-by-step practical example. And as always, we will end up with 5 interview questions based on triggers, questions that are commonly asked by top companies and can give you an edge in your next database related interview. If you are serious about mastering SQL Server and want practical knowledge that matters, you are in the right place. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss a powerful tip. All right, let's dive into the world of logon triggers and see how you can use them to enhance security and control in your SQL Server environment. Let's first define what logon triggers are. The logon triggers are special type of triggers when they fire when your user session is being established. So when you try to attempt to log into the SQL Server instance, they can be used for restricting user logins or enforcing some rules. For example, if you want to allow only a part of users, only a specific hours of the day that you can actually write triggers for that. So this will allow or disallow based on that condition. Make sense? One practical example is, let's say an organization has a kind of users called day users. They want to allow this day user to log into SQL Server instance only in a specific time. That means only in daytime. And what is that? They can only be allowed in between 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. If the day user tries to log into the SQL Server instance after 9 p.m. or before 9 a.m., they'll simply be disallowed. We will try to achieve this in simple example today in SQL Server Management Studio. So let's go and try to see these things in action. I'm in SQL Server Management Studio, and using this script, we have created a login as well as a user. If you expand this particular SQL Server instance, you see that a day user is already created, as well as if you expand this database and if you expand the CWA demo database, then you see this day user is already there. So that's this way we have created. One more thing that we have done is that if your SQL Server application does not have SQL Server authentication enabled, all you require is to go here and then properties, and then you can go to security, and you have to enable it from here. And then probably you need to restart the SQL Server service to activate this. Make sense? Now, this SQL Server application has SQL authentication enabled. So this even doesn't only allow the Windows authentication, but SQL Server authentication as well. Now we have gone and written a trigger, that is logon trigger. So how do we write the logon trigger? Since we have already written, that's why we have written alter, otherwise create trigger tz block day user on all server. So we have to write on all server for logon. So this is the syntax. This is a little different from the DML triggers. So now what we are trying to write is we are achieving this login name here from original login. So this will give us the login details, and this will also give you that this particular value hour will give you the hour of the day. And then we are telling that if login user is a day user, login name is a day user, and hour is, let's say, greater than 21, means it's a night, so greater than 21. or less than 9. So if it is after 9 p.m. or before 9 a.m., then you have to roll back. I mean, refuse it, not to log in. So let's go and create this. So this has been created. Now, I'm going to log into this user. So what's the time right now? You see the time right now is 7 p.m. That is 19 p.m. 19 hours. So if we'll go ahead and try to log in to SQL Server authentication and day user, and I am entering the password, so it allows. So I am able to log into it. Okay. At the same time, let me disconnect it again. Let me go and change this trigger. Now I'm going to say that you should disallow this guy. If he is, let's say, if this user is login before 9 p.m. and after 9 a.m., then roll back. So let's see what happens. If I'm coming here and trying to connect it to this user and say I'm entering the same password, and this should disallow me. And what is the result? It says that login failed for login day user due to trigger execution. That means there is some login trigger which is already in place, which disallowed it to get into. So this way, you can actually do something. You can write a trigger which will basically allow or is disallow a particular user, a particular set of user for a particular set of time frame. Make sense? Hope this demo clarifies your login trigger concept here. Let's go and try to understand the 5 interview questions based on triggers. The first question is, what is trigger in SQL Server? Explain its type. We have already covered it in first and second videos, but just to remind you again, and then just to refresh it, a special kind of stored procedure like database object that automatically executes when a specified event occurs, maybe after, maybe instead of. DDL triggers and logon triggers are the types. This is the first question. Second question, what is the difference between after and instead of triggers? Execution time of after trigger is after the DML operation, and execution time of instead of trigger is before the DML operation. Uses mostly used for validating and logging, but instead of trigger used to override the DML behavior. For example, we have already seen in our previous example that we were doing soft delete. So instead of delete was not being performed, but instead of delete, it was performing soft delete. So this is the use of instead of. Support for tables view, the after trigger only supports table, but instead of trigger supports both table and views. Let's go to the third example. Can a trigger call another trigger? Answer is yes, a trigger can call another trigger. So if a second trigger is defined on the table affected by the first trigger, this is known as nested trigger. This is very important question people may ask you in interviews, and you should be aware of this fact. And how much level of nesting is possible? As the time this video is being recorded, we can see the references up to 32 levels. So one trigger fired, another trigger fired, another trigger fired, and this way it may go up to 32 levels. So you can actually enable or disable the nesting of trigger execution. If you can check anytime using this command whether the nested trigger execution is on or off, and you can also configure this using this command. You can supply 1 instead of 0, which will allow you to execute the nesting triggers. Let's go and see this thing in action in SQL Server Management Studio. So I'm back in SQL Server Management Studio, and I wanted to show you the demo for nesting triggers, nested triggers. This will give you the idea on what is the value. Right now, this is 1. That means the run value is 1. This means nested triggers is activated. So what we are trying to do is that we are going to fire this nested trigger into 2 levels. So we have 3 tables: employee table, an audit log table, and there is something called nested log table. So what will happen whenever I'll do some change in employee table, we have written a DML trigger after update, which will insert one record to audit log. And on audit log, we have also written another trigger after insert, which will do something and try to insert some details to nested log. So you see here, we will perform the activity on this. This trigger will fire, but this will do something on this. This will eventually fire another trigger, which will do something on it. So this is a nesting of trigger, but this will only fire when this option is enabled, and which is right now enabled here. So we have three tables. Employees table has got employee ID, employee name, and salary. Let's create it. The table has been created. Now the second table is audit log. Audit log table is log ID, employee ID, old salary, new salary, change date. Let's go and create this again. And the third table is nested log. Nested log table has got nested ID and message and log time. So let's create this as well. All the three tables got created. Let's go and create this trigger. The first trigger is TG after update employee. So this will fire when we will do some update in employee table. And what it is doing is it fires after update, and it will insert some record into audit log table. Let's go and create this trigger. Trigger has been created. And another trigger is, which is called as TG after insert audit nested log. So this will basically this will fire when any insertion will take place after insertion in take place on audit log file. So you remember that in previous we are inserting into audit log, and this will in turn file this trigger. So let's go and create this trigger as well. The trigger has been created. Now let's go and insert one record here. One record has been inserted in the employees table. Let's see the data. This is one John Doe record is having salary 50,000, right? Let's go and do one thing. Let's change the salary. So what will happen once you update the salary, then the after update trigger will fire, which will insert a record here. And after insert trigger is there, which will insert another record here. So by just doing this one update, all these two nesting triggers will fire and it will have records in them. So let's go and check if they have records in them. So you see that we changed the salary from 50 to 55,000. Now this 50,000 is old salary, new salary is 55,000, and one record got inserted into audit log table, and that's why another record, since there was an after insert trigger, so another record gets inserted into audit log track table. Make sense? Let's go and disable the nested trigger execution configuration. So let's go and do this. So we did this. Now the configuration has been disabled. Now let's go and change the salary from 55 to 60,000. So ideally, all the three tables should be updated, but we see something strange. Since we have disabled it, the nested trigger execution, so only after update happens. So see, the previous salary is 55, but now salary is 60. But since nested trigger configuration is disabled, so the nested trigger didn't execute. So this way you can execute, you can actually enable or disable nested trigger configuration. So you can come here and anytime check if it is disabled. So you can say this is disabled here. Make sense? Let's go to the next question. The next question is, what are the inserted and deleted tables? So these are a special kind of tables and they are created during the triggers. They are also called magic tables. Inserted tables are the tables which hold a copy of new data for insert and update, and deleted table hold a copy of the old data for delete or update. We have talked about much of magic tables in this video, triggers part 1 and triggers part 2. You can refer this video anytime, or I can give you the link in I button and description both. You can check this all. Last question is, what are the disadvantages or limitation of using triggers? Couple of disadvantages. Can make debugging and maintenance, since they are automatically called. So once you are debugging your stored procedure or you're debugging your SQL Server code, it's a little difficult for you to do that, because then it goes there and since it automatically executes. May cause hidden performance issues, because many times you do not have intention to and do not actually see that, because they are automatically executed, implicitly executed. So this goes out of sight and this causes performance issues. Execution is implicit, so developer might not realize a trigger is running. So again, that's third point is this you have to really keep track of. So we in practical scenarios, whenever any performance issue comes, then we go to the database table and then check if they have some triggers enabled. We disable the trigger, so you can actually disable the trigger as well, right clicking and disabling. So this way you can disable or enable the triggers. So we disable the trigger and see if that improves the performance. So these things can be, these are really couple of disadvantages or limitations of using triggers. I hope the concept of Logon triggers that I have talked about is pretty much clear to you. We also discussed a couple of interview questions, although they were primary and very basic. You can post your question if you have any which are related to triggers. I will go to the depth and try to answer those. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more high quality technical content, drop your question again and comment, and I'll be happy to answer them. See you in the next one. Bye bye.